think the best way to talk about this one will be to look at a classic example of a famous participant observation study. So we'll talk about a study that was done by Festinger and colleagues. And so this is a classic social psychology study that was done back in the 1950s. And the researchers really wanted to get an idea of what would happen to a group of people who maintained a really devout belief in a specific prophecy. And they wanted to see what happened to those people after the prophecy failed. So they actually infiltrated a cult. The researcher and I think about 5 assistants infiltrated this cult. And the leader of the cult had been predicting a massive flood that was going to hit on December 21st, 1954. So this is a very specific prediction. And so the researchers assumed that this flood probably isn't really going to happen, so let's join this group and see what they do when they're sitting around on December 21st waiting for the entirety of North America to be wiped out by a flood, and it doesn't happen. So are they going to revolt against their leader? Are they going to just get really depressed? Are they going to change their beliefs after that? What are they going to do? And so this was really based on a theory that was very popular at the time and still has a bit of a following, called the cognitive dissonance theory. Has anybody ever heard of this one? Cognitive dissonance? So what does this involve?
Well, in my social psych class, she was saying that basically, like, if the flood didn't come, they would try to make up a reason for why they all did that to kind of justify, like, why they had all wasted their time and stuff. Because she gave us some example where, like, basically they had shut everybody out and they said that, like, aliens were going to come. And when the aliens didn't come, the people were like, oh, the aliens just didn't come because they saw us, so they were scared and they never came, to kind of make them, like, feel like we didn't waste our time, like, you know, kind of make them feel like they're not stupid or something. That's what I got from it, but I'm not sure if I'm right.
Okay, yeah, I mean, you've got some of the basic ideas there. You've heard about this type of study before. Yeah, so with cognitive dissonance theory, the notion is that when people hold a belief that doesn't match up with their actions or the real world, and they realize that there's that difference between what they believe or what they do and the way that the world really works, they feel really uncomfortable, and then something has to change. Either their actions or beliefs have to change, or they have to go out and change the world in some way. So this difference usually causes some discomfort, which leads the people to change in some way. A lot of times it is a mismatch between people's beliefs and people's actions. When you realize that your actions are not consistent with your beliefs and attitudes, that makes you feel kind of uncomfortable, like you're a hypocrite or something. And so they wanted to see what would happen here. Now, can anybody think of some ethical issues that might be involved with this type of research? Researchers are actually infiltrating a cult, interacting with the members and taking observations.
They didn't tell them.
What's that?
They didn't tell them what was going on.
Yeah, so they didn't get any consent or anything like that. So deception and privacy are 2 of the big issues here, because they're not coming right out and saying, "Hi, I'm a researcher who's here to observe your cult, and we want to see, what you all do in case this prophecy that you have fails." They're being kind of sneaky. They're lying. They're actively lying to these people, telling them, "Yes, I believe in the prophecy too," so that they'll blend in. And they're taking records of these people's actions without telling them that we're recording your behavior. So that's going to get into some privacy issues there. People don't know that they're being observed. So that can be kind of problematic. Another issue that they ran into here was problems recording the information that they were observing. So remember, this was back in 1954, so this was before hidden cameras were really available or were small enough that they could put a hidden recording device on their person or anything like that. So what they ended up doing was just trying to sneak away on a relatively regular basis and take notes on what they had seen. And so they started just sneaking off into the bathroom and then just writing down as much as they could. Because it would look kind of odd if they were walking around taking notes on the things that all the other people in the group were saying, right? And that might give them away as outsiders and would cause some unusual reactions. But nowadays, hidden cameras are used a lot more often. The nice thing about that is that you have a clear record of what behaviors occurred, and you can actually go in and examine the video after the fact and have multiple observers rate the behaviors or code them in different ways. We'll talk about all this in just a little bit. Now, there were also some concerns about reactivity in this study. Now, does anybody remember what is involved with this issue? I think we talked about it much earlier this semester. Reactivity.
Like reacting to the observers?
Yeah. So anytime you have a social interaction, they can be pretty complex. You have the participants who are being observed, and they're reacting to the researchers in some way. And as hard as you try, you might try to be an unbiased observer, but the way that other people act around you are going to affect you. I mean, your researchers are human beings too. And so this can be kind of tricky. And there were some concerns that the experimenters might have subtly influenced the group in some way. As a matter of fact, the group ended up believing that I think 2 of Festinger's colleagues were basically chosen ones sent by the aliens that were going to cause the flood. And so you would imagine that their presence would have had an impact. Plus, just having this group of 6 people join up lends to the illusion that this is actually a popular belief that a lot of people share. I mean, if you've ever learned anything about conformity in your other psychology classes, you know that the group can have a powerful influence over your own beliefs. And so just by joining and giving the appearance of being a group that shares this belief, it might have actually strengthened the beliefs in the real cult members. Now, but anyway, now that we've got these issues out of the way, I just wanted to tell you briefly about the result of this research. So, of course, the big flood that was supposed to wipe out North America didn't happen. And the members were sitting around. They did experience quite a lot of anxiety, as cognitive dissonance theory would suggest. But they didn't actually turn on their leader or abandon the group. In the end, they just changed their beliefs. And they said, well, we were right all along about our predictions. It's just that through our actions, we managed to convince God to save the world from this flood. And so it actually strengthened their resolve in the face of this failure, which is pretty fascinating. So, any questions about this participant observation study? So you can see the clear distinction between that and a naturalistic observation study, because the researchers were actually part of that group, interacting with the people as if they were members. Now, before we move on and talk about some of the challenges of these observational methods, I just want to have a brief discussion with y'all and ask whether any of your proposals that you've thought up and that you're hopefully working on right now actually use any type of an observational technique or could use an observational technique?
I'm observing groups of students in particular structured scenarios and watching their behaviors or lack of behavior.
Okay, and that's, yeah, and yours, it's in a classroom setting, right?
Right.
And you're actually interested in generalizing that to real classroom behavior. So I think that could be considered a naturalistic setting, because you are out in the real world. You're not doing this as like an artificial observation in a lab or anything like that. So yeah, that design definitely does have some elements of the naturalistic observation.
Yeah, because it's definitely going to happen whether I'm observing it as an experiment or not.
Okay.
It's their real world.
Gotcha. Yeah. Although the one difference there is that you're actually manipulating one aspect of the group membership, whether they're working with an experienced person or not.
Correct.
Yeah. So that's a true experiment because you're manipulating that, but it does have some elements of the stuff we've been talking about. Okay. Anybody else? Some observation of real-world behaviors.
With mine, I'm taking a road class and having somebody hold the door, and depending on how they look, the competitor holding the door, whether or not I'll get a response, like a thank you, just an appreciation of kindness.
Okay.
So I'm observing whether or not physical sharpness plays a part.
Okay, yeah, so that's another great example of a naturalistic method in your proposal. And again, you're manipulating something. You're manipulating the attractiveness of the person who's holding the door, but you're working with a real class in a real environment, or proposing to. So that does have some of these methods involved. Anybody else? Doing any kind of observation? Okay. There's one, I can't remember off the top of my head who's doing this, but looking at how patient people are at a restaurant and how much they tip. Is that? Let's see. Is that the person who's doing that here? No? Okay. Yeah, I just can't remember off the top of my head. I remember the idea. But anyway, well, that proposal involved observing how patient restaurant patrons are, and then coding that in some way, and then looking at how much they tip based on that type of behavior, their interactions with the server. And so that would be another clear observational research method. And that didn't even have a manipulation, I don't think, because you can't manipulate whether someone's patient or not.